Hey everybody, it's Kyle from Young Legend Street Hockey. This is our fifth podcast today. I'm joined today by Mr. Josh Salah, who is someone that I've never met in person, but he was gracious enough to join me. And first off, I'll tell you guys how I heard about Josh. Is I have a cousin who told me that there's this guy from Gloucester that plays professional golf over in Asia. So I'm a big fan of golf. Whether or not I'm really good at it, that's very questionable. But I'm really fascinated with people like Josh who are able to take their game to a whole nother level. To take it to a professional level, no matter what level you are, it's still an incredible accomplishment. So I'm so grateful to have Josh. Just a little bit about him before we get into it. Josh is a graduate of Gloucester High School. He was part of the 2006 Gloucester High School State Hockey Championship team. So he was with Paul. Your brother Tommy was on that team. Graduated in Gloucester High School, then went on to Sacred Heart, played college golf at Sacred Heart. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. And then he's been competing on the Asian Development Tour, where he's won twice. So here's a guy that's actually won professional golf events. So Josh, thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you again. So again, like I said, I've heard of you, followed you a little bit. I know you and your dad were in a tournament together. Was that at Bass Rocks or was that a Massachusetts tournament? Am I recalling that correctly?
That might have been that probably was the Mass Sam, maybe, yeah, when I was in high school. My dad's a good player as well. So, yeah, he's still playing a lot. So we have some battles for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My dad, he still loves playing with us kids. So tell us a little bit about, your childhood growing up in Gloucester, the sports you played, what hobbies did you have? Sort of talk about your progression a little bit.
Yeah, really growing up, played everything. Hockey, football, baseball, lacrosse. Kind of got into golf a little later. But yeah, I just really played everything. I think it was probably maybe 8th grade, 7th grade where I kind of stopped and just kind of focused on golf and hockey. Especially with golf, you kind of forced to put the clubs away for 6 months. So then when the spring comes, instead of playing baseball or lacrosse in the spring, I wanted to just focus on golf, especially in high school. I thought it was my best opportunity to get a college scholarship, and that's where honestly where I was the best at, and I enjoyed. So I would say midway through kind of high school was when really I started taking golf probably the most serious out of anything.
Awesome. And being like you mentioned, 6 months out of the year, you put the clubs away. That must be a really challenging thing for you when you really started to pick up playing more golf.
Yeah, it was it's extremely difficult. Kind of start over every spring, and you're trying to compete against guys that live in Florida and in southern climates where they can play golf all year round and get better at their craft 365 days a year if they want to. And for me, I was just I'd put the clubs away and play hockey, and then mid-April when courses back here opened up, then it was let's give it a go. So yeah, it certainly made once I did turn professional, like I certainly was behind the 8 ball and had a lot of improving to do.
When it came to, you decided you're going to pursue more of the golf, how often were you playing during the April to November months, or however long you could play? How often were you playing?
Well, in college at Sacred Heart, we had a indoor studio with a couple hitting bays and putting green and stuff like that. That we would go there a couple days a week, but it was it's not the same, right? You're hitting balls into a net and all winter long. It's not the same as being able to play, So we certainly we certainly did that all winter. None of it was mandatory though. It's just kind of a different, Division One college golf in a northeast school is certainly much different than playing, at a big time Division One college golf school, in the country that it's pretty much a full-time gig, all year round. So
Interesting. When you were at Gloucester High School, and you were going through this transition where you were realizing, hey, I'm getting pretty good at this sport. Where did you play most of your practice rounds?
yeah, so been a member at Bass Rocks really since probably I was 12 or 13. Um, the membership there has been awesome with me, especially the last 6 years since I've been a pro. They've been, nothing but support. The members have been awesome. So yeah, just really, playing at Bass Rocks and then playing, growing up, just playing tournaments throughout Massachusetts, doing some traveling, but not a ton. Certainly nowhere near the level of these guys that were playing top college golf, that got those scholarships to play at the highest level.
Sure. When you were started, did Sacred Heart find you? How did that process sort of work?
Yeah. So to be completely honest, I was good, but I wasn't, unless you're a top 50 player in the country or top 100 player in the country, these schools aren't going to really come knocking at your door. They're not going to be reaching out to you unless you're, like I said, the elite of the elite. So for me, I was sending resumes and reaching out to these coaches, and luckily enough, Sacred Heart, I guess they liked what they saw, and I went down there for a visit, and the coach started following my progress, and yeah, it worked out where it was. I wanted to go to a school that had a good program that I could play, and financially where it worked out, where I could get a scholarship, and also a great academic school as well.
Absolutely. Now Sacred Heart's in Connecticut, correct?
Yep, Fairfield, Connecticut. Yeah.
Okay. With that said, when you were, I mean, that's impressive. You just, pick it up, walk, pretty much get resumes out there, things like that. One of the things that was helpful to me is that I think a lot of high school kids don't realize is there's this idea that, coaches could be at your game, you get spotted, you get seen, and next thing you know, you're being recruited. But for a majority of players, a lot of times you have to be your own. You have to take your own proactive approach, like you just mentioned.
Yeah. You almost sort of have to treat it like a business. Like you have to sell yourself. You have a resume together with your accomplishments, and now I think it's even more of like videos and stuff. Sending these coaches videos, and basically just the more shots you take, the better chance you have a score. In terms of the more stuff you send out to these coaches, the more opportunities or potential leads that could come from it, for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I don't think people realize that there's a proactive approach to trying to play at the collegiate level. Um, you know, especially, I know some players have to go to a year prep school or maybe they play juniors or whatever. I mean, I don't think golf has that sort of almost like a post-grad year, do they?
I think there's like the junior colleges down south that guys go to. Yeah, it's certainly not, I would say, as popular as a football or hockey, where these coaches want their recruits to have another year to develop in terms of their body, putting on 10, 20 pounds, or playing at a higher level of competition. So golf is such an individual sport that scores don't lie. So if
Right.
you're shooting 65, you're shooting 65, but to play Division One college hockey, if you're coming from there's just no way you're going to go from playing at Gloucester High School to playing at Boston College.
Right. Right.
You would need to play, prep school for a year, or juniors, or a level of competition that's certainly higher, to prove yourself that you can skate with the top talent.
That's a great point. From my perspective, is I was one of those guys that did send their schedule out to college coaches, because I had a coach that would back me, but I also knew that you did need to get yourself out there a little bit. And to your point, I mean, I've said this a few times on previous podcasts. I was actually more built like a golfer than a hockey player, I think. But nowadays it seems like if you're not being recruited by the time you're a freshman, it's like, oh, I'm never going anywhere, which is not the case. Someone like me, really bulked up after college. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
now I'm at the weight that I should be. And my whole point is that there's no shame in taking extra time to develop your craft. You know what I mean? And I think development is a lifelong thing. It's not just you have it by the time you're 10 and that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
So, um, tell us a little bit about your practice routine. When you were at Gloucester, did you play every single day?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, after the winter, we're dying to get out there, and would be out, we'll be practicing and playing every day, for the most part. The last 5 years of living in Thailand, yeah, it's a full, it's you treat it like a full-time job. Get out there at 8 a.m. And you're pretty much there all day,
Yeah.
just grinding, trying to simulate tournament conditions, whether we're out there playing a money game with my buddies, or having chipping contests or putting games, working on your swing. But it's a full-time profession for sure. You could make it a 2-hour profession where you're out there for a couple hours and you call it quits, but you're not gonna survive too long, put it that way.
How does your day set up? Are you hitting balls in the morning, playing some holes in the afternoon, maybe getting a lift in?
Yeah.
What's that like?
Yes. So I'm a morning person. I get up early, so I usually would get to the gym right when I wake up. Usually I'd be in the gym by 6:30. Be at the course at 8. Practice for a few hours. Um, then take a lunch break at about noon. And then maybe play in the afternoon. Maybe do a little bit of practicing. And typically it would be like I'd leave my apartment at 7:45, and I would get back at 6.
At 6. Full day, full
So it's
days.
a yep, yep, rinse and
Full day.
repeat. Just so it changes, depending on tournament schedule, and how I'm feeling. If I'm playing well, then I probably won't be hitting as many balls, or if I'm putting well, I probably won't be spending as much time on the putting green. So yeah, it really kind of all depends.
Is there is there a favorite part of your game right now?
I would say probably the best part of my game is my iron play. I'm a really good iron play and wedge player. Wedges have been something that I've really took pride in, and tried to be. I've kind of had this goal with my coach, that I used to work with, that I'm trying to get my wedge stats to be in the top 10 in the world. So I'm looking at my wedge results, and I keep track of them, and just it's something to shoot for, right? You have these goals. You keep your stats, and every day when you go to the course, you work on it, and you try and improve day by day.
Absolutely. it's nice to hear you talk about, so much practice that goes into this, and we'll come back to that topic a little bit. But I did want to ask you, how does your family sort of fit into all this and in your success over the years?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with my brother. I just growing up with him, playing sports with him, pushing each other from a young age. We always competed with anything we did, right? So I was very fortunate to have a role model and a mentor from a young age to push each other, and then in terms of the last probably 5 years of playing professionally, my parents have been nothing but supportive and encouraging in the whole process. I mean, they at the first couple of years was certainly a little bit of a struggle, and they could have been, they could have acted completely different in terms of you know put doubt in my mind. Maybe it's time to get a real job. Maybe it's time to do this. Try something else or whatever. But no, they've been nothing but encouraging and supporting my entire life. I mean, they never forced me and my brother to do anything. It was always, you know, encourage us to practice, encourage us to, improve, to go to the gym, whatever. But there was never any type of forcing us to do anything. I think there's a big difference in that regard.
That's been something that we had mentioned a little bit offline. It's the sacrifice that is made not only by you but by your family. Do they get over and get to watch you play when you're over in Thailand?
Um, yeah, my parents came once. They came and visited. Um, but yeah, they've actually never seen me play over there. It's hard because, if we play in so many different countries that it's difficult, that flight and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah,
It's hard. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of, there's been a lot of sacrifices in terms of family and seeing my family in the last, in this last stretch of me, living predominantly in Asia. That's a sacrifice that, you know, you have to make.
yeah. I like what you said too about your parents, never discouraging you from what you want to do. My brother and sister and I, we were very fortunate in that same aspect. Our parents were always very supportive in what we wanted to accomplish, and even to this day, they're still very, positive, making sure that they're there to help us, but at the same time, they've always been supportive of what we're doing. So I'm glad to hear that. If you could talk a little bit about, you had mentioned this a little bit, your time in the gym. What's fitness like for a pro golfer?
Yeah, I mean, I work out just to try and be an athlete. I think there's a few golf specific stuff that I do every day. To get loose and to maintain flexibility and pliability. But yeah, I've always kind of had the hockey mentality of working out just to be an athlete. I'm pretty flexible to begin with, so that's one thing that some golfers struggle with is flexibility and the injury prevention type stuff. But I've been fortunate enough that um, my golfing career, I haven't experienced any significant injuries or any been sidelines for any period of time because of that. And I think that is a result of the work that I do put in the gym and making sure that my body is ready to go every day.
Do you have? I know you had mentioned a coach. Do you have a strength coach as well, or?
I do not know. If I feel like my workouts are getting a little stale, that's the beauty of technology these days with YouTube and you could follow these golf trainers that work with uh, Dustin Johnson or Rory McIlroy on Instagram or something like that, and you could see the workouts that they're doing. That's the beauty of technology these days. So I've certainly picked up some exercises and workouts that I've incorporated into my daily routine that I've gotten from social media.
The flexibility point of your routine, do you feel like you're spending more time on that now than you were when you were in high school or even in college?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Especially in golf, I feel like the more flexibility leads to speed, right? Like the more flexible you are, the more power you can generate in terms of torque and turning, right? So yeah, I would definitely say that in the last few years, I've definitely spent more time with flexibility.
That's good to know because I think that part of the issue. I mean, I've talked to Paul Russo a little bit about this. Your buddy. Um, growing up, I was very driven and motivated, but I was also very stubborn in a non-coachable way when it came to working out. And the one thing that even to this day that I've never taken as seriously has been flexibility and stretching. And if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I probably would say, "Hey, you gotta spend more time on this," because, like you said, it can help with speed and I hope that our youth players are more into stretching. I mean, nowadays I even do a little bit of yoga here and there. So
Yep.
from my experience of playing golf as an amateur, I always feel like if I'm tight, I'm not swinging the club that well that day. I'm like,
Yep.
man, I feel like to quote Tin Cup, an unfolded lawn chair. You know what I mean? You know what that's like. You just feel,
Yeah.
and there's no tempo. So, um, tell us about what it was like to win your first professional event.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I made I birdied the last two holes, and in the last hole I made probably a 30 footer over a ridge, and I knew it was to win. I knew that if I two putted, I probably would have a good chance of winning. But the final pairing of the day, the group behind me, if the kid birdied the last two holes, he could tie. So in the back of my mind, I knew that a two putt probably would be good enough. Maybe not though. And yeah, I just hearted this putt from like 30 feet, and yeah, the feeling was, it's it was unbelievable.
What was that week like for you? Did you feel like you were just in the zone that whole week, or what was that like?
Yeah, so the 2 weeks prior, I had the Asian Tour qualifying tournament and the PGA Tour China qualifying tournament in the 2 weeks prior to that. And both weeks I played bad. I didn't qualify for either tour, and I showed up that week, and I don't know, for whatever reason, it was like, I don't have this isn't a life or death qualifying tournament. That pressure was just that I had felt the previous weeks, and I just had a sense of calmness the whole week. Um, and I had one of my buddies caddying for me. He didn't get into the tournament. He was my roommate at the time, and we were just vibing all week. I don't know. We had this sense of confidence instilled in both of us that, like, we're winning. Like, this is just gonna happen. I just remember feeling like over every single putt I was gonna make it, and I guess that's how you shoot 17 under. You got to make a few putts.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Um, so there's in golf and all sports, to play at the level that you're playing at, it takes some mental toughness. I wanted to ask you this earlier, is let's start with what drives you first. Like, what motivates you to get up every day and do what you do?
Yeah, I just want to be the best version that of myself that I can be. Um, yeah, I just push. It's just that inner sense of, I want to be the best player I can be. I want to be one of the top players in the world. I want to get out of where I am now, and I want to be on TV. I want to, so it's just it's my own self drive. I'm not playing for, other reasons of having people notice me or having, the other, um, sources of motivation. It's all motivation for myself. Um, yeah.
Have you always been like that, Josh?
I think playing other sports my whole entire life, I've kind of always, I don't know, I've always been somebody that's wanted the ball in a big game. I've always been somebody that's thrived off that pressure, like that pressure. And I feel like those moments have, um, have gotten the best out of myself.
That's interesting. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about is a question that I have, um, is along this lines of I grew up playing a lot of baseball and obviously hockey. Golf was something that I just to share this little story with you is my dad gave me his old Ben Hogan's. Okay, these are wooden clubs. They're antiques now. I think he still has them. And they're forged irons, so they're very difficult to hit. And he'd let me go over to Candlewood, all right, and use these things on whatever Candlewood fairways are. I mean, I grew up playing on that little
Yeah.
course, but golf was always sort of like this nice little fun hobby. When I got older, I started playing in adult men's league. That's where I started to get, and again, nothing on the level that you're at, but I could tell there was a lot more mental part of this game than what I was used to as a kid. But again, growing up playing a lot of in team sports, I don't know if I ever really had the opportunity to just be the person that it was solely relied on. You know what I mean? And can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit to
Yeah.
that point? Whereas golf, it's just you versus the course, and there's you've got a caddy who can be helpful, but you know what I mean? Does that
Yeah.
question?
It's yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, golf it's just, especially when you're playing for your livelihood and your profession, you're out there by yourself, right? Like you have a bad period or a bad shift, you can't hide behind your teammates, right? Um, if you make a bad swing, that could be the difference between you getting paid that week and not getting paid that week.
Yeah,
So there's certainly and one thing that I will say that uh, in terms of professional golf and the lifestyle that I live is you get comfortable at being uncomfortable, right?
love it.
You're in these situations that, especially, for me, that say you're in China and your caddy doesn't speak English and you ate noodles and some weird whatever for breakfast because that's all the hotel offered. Maybe you're a little homesick and you have all these things, these everything is working against you, and you're uncomfortable. And how do you alleviate that sense of, no, it's okay, it's okay, how do I get back to being comfortable? And just the experiences, time after time, you learn the ins and outs of how to deal with those situations, and you know how to improve on them for the next situation.
That's such a strong point. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like in that situation where you've got someone who doesn't speak the language, and maybe you're looking for just a little bit of comfort from when you're in those moments. Do you have a strategy or technique that gets you back to the moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's just breathing, right? Just focusing on the breath. And I have gotten into meditation a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's just something that I have found that's helped me is, especially in the situations that you feel the most pressure, right? Whether it's the last hole to win a golf tournament or the last hole to make the cut. Things that I try and do, or that I know that help me, is just slow down your walk, slow down your breath, focusing on your breath. It sounds a little strange. It might sound a little strange to some people, but when you're in that moment and, your heart is beating and you're over a putt to win a golf tournament and your hands are shaking and it's the difference between it's a significant sum of money and it can be life changing. And how do just finding um, those little things that I have found that help me. So
Thank you for sharing that. As you were talking, I was trying to put myself in the position of you. I've watched a ton of golf tournaments, PGA, and I can feel that moment where you're like, you have to make this putt, even if we're just playing in a tournament or something that's, like I said, a local tournament, and you're not going to win anything, Josh. But it's still the moment. Maybe it's you want to win, just tell people that you're the best. But that moment where you're like, all right, I have to sink the putt, and like you said, your hands are shaking. What I don't think people realize is that that's something that you can develop and practice. It's not just people are born with this skill to focus on their breath. These are
yep.
legitimate strategies that you can.
Yeah. And so one thing that I try and do in my practices is simulate tournament conditions. So whether it's a putting drill or it's a chipping game or whatever, when you have that pressure every day to whether it's to finish this putting game of making so many 5-footers in a row or whatever, when you simulate those tournament conditions, when you're in the heat of the battle and you need to make this putt, you can go back to, you have something to look back to that you did, maybe the previous day, or you had recently just, it's just instilling the confidence in yourself every day in a pressure situation that you can perform. So
Interesting.
yeah,
That's really interesting. I mean, I'm trying to put in my head right now. I think it was number 3 before Jay Pratt. Brian acts as a sports psychologist or a performance coach, and he talked a little bit about what you had just mentioned about focusing on your breath. Even your pre-swing routine. What does that look like? And I think one of the misunderstandings that we have in our society is you get these people that are, like the Michael Jordans of the world, the Tiger Woods, all of these, Tom Brady, for what it's worth, they're these such high performers, but I don't think people know that they didn't just wake up one day and were these people. It took years of devotion, practice. You already mentioned sacrifice to get to that level. And so with that said, what advice do you have for youth players that may be wanting to get to a professional level, or even just play college or their high school team? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah. I would say like to see like try and find a mentor. So say if you're a freshman in high school, reach out to the best player on the team. See if you can work out with him. Ask questions. Um, get out of your comfort zone. That was sort of going back to that point that I made earlier, is get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's the more you put yourself in a situation, um, whether you're playing golf and you're a freshman and you try and reach out to the seniors or whatever, but find people that are have more experience in you in whatever you're doing, whatever sport, and I think you can just learn so much from people that have had more success than you, more experience, and yeah, that's just the easiest way to improve. You need to get out of your comfort zone of hanging around with the same kids or doing the same stuff every day, whether it's playing video games after school, or if you're a third liner and you're okay with being a third liner, then just keep doing what you're doing. But if you're a third liner and you want to be a first liner, if you want to be on the power play or whatever, you need to get out of your comfort zone of doing what you've been doing. Yeah.
That's something that that's probably one of the most articulated ways that I think I've heard someone say it, is, getting out of your comfort zone. That's something that is not easy to do either. It's not easy. In today's world, with everything that we're experiencing and the uncertainty of a pandemic and people facing all kinds of challenges, it can be very, very uncomfortable, and during times like this, you see where, people that have mental toughness sort of continue to go about their business knowing that this will end. But I cannot agree with you enough. I think that, it all comes back to the person. Like for someone like you, you're okay with getting out of your comfort zone because you want to get to that next level, and
yep.
that's been something that I hope a lot of our youth players and even youth parents, it's okay for your child to struggle, make mistakes. That's how you get better. Can you talk a little bit about your mindset when it comes to mistakes or failures?
Yeah. I just feel like that's the easiest way to learn. You learn the most from the setbacks, the struggles, and if you don't put yourself in those situations to fail, to whether it's, playing with someone that is better than you or whatever it is, you have to be okay with, failing. But when you fail, there's always a lesson to be learned, right? Something to improve on. And in those setbacks, the people that you hang around with, surrounding yourself with successful, the most successful people or the best player on the team, right?
Yeah.
If you're hanging out with these guys, the little things that you can pick up, what they do, how they go about doing things, I think is valuable in terms of the growth of the athlete, and the level of improvement that can be had. I know with myself, I learned the most and improved the most when I started surrounding myself with better players, really. I know when I graduated college, I was so raw in terms of my ability that I was good in the Northeast, but I wasn't at a level that I could, I didn't feel like I could play on the PGA Tour, put it that way. But once I got out of my comfort zone and started playing with guys that had won professional events all around the world, you just learn so much and you pick up invaluable lessons from people that are more successful.
I agree with you. Even to this day, I'm always trying to find people like yourselves that I can chat with who are reaching success levels that I admire. And just a funny story on Cape Ann youth hockey, because you played for Cape Ann,
Yep.
growing up. Do you remember Sal Grasso by any chance?
I do not know.
He was more.
Heard the name.
He remember we used to do we would go to Westmount.
Yep.
The Montreal tournament. They
Yep.
named that tournament after Sal.
That's right. Yeah.
And Sal was a big dude. And one day my dad was coaching me, and we were doing one zone. You were working on one skill. In the neutral zone, you were working on another skill, and then down the other end, Josh, Sal Grasso was on the ice with sneakers on, and I'm like, how was this guy on the ice with sneakers? And I kid you not, I remember looking at my dad and saying, hey, Dad, don't make me go down into that zone. I don't want to do those drills. Now, mind you, I must have been maybe 9 years old at the time, but I was intimidated by this big guy who was yelling. And what they were doing is the drill wasn't that hard. It was he would hold a stick and, if I point to you, you skate backwards. If I point the stick behind you, I skate forward, side to that. It was that he would even, roll his stick around and you would roll on your stomach. But for some reason, a 9-year-old kid, I'm like, I definitely don't want to do that. I want no part of being yelled at by this big guy. I just want to stay here in my comfort zone. You know what I mean? And my dad goes, if you don't want to go down there, you don't have to, but you should really go and try it. Well, something happened where I didn't even have to go down there and try it, Josh, but I just remember that being a scared kid and just being intimidated of it. But my dad was always good about me saying, just try it. Just try it. He always, always would tell me to just try something. And that always got me in the mindset that, hey, I'm going to try this, whether I'm going to like it or not. But I've had to get out of my comfort zone so many times in my life that, I kind of look for the comfort just like you do, but
Yeah.
it seems like life is always coming at us and we're always going to be on our toes. And that's just the way life is. So thanks for letting me share that story, because I don't know if I don't even know if Tommy would know who Sal Grasso is. He was more my coach. But to finish up that story, years later, Sal was my Pee-wee coach. And I remember skating down the right side at Pingree, going by the boards. I ended up getting tripped right in front of the net. I fell to my knees, and I was able to tuck the puck between the goalie's pads and got a goal. It made me feel great. It was just one of those things that I think you're in the zone for it. And when I got back to the bench, the guy that intimidated the most came over, stepped down from the bench, and gave me a pat on the shoulder, like that was a nice play. You know what I mean? And that meant so much to me because I was so intimidated of this guy. But again, that guy, sorry, I'm going off on a rant, everybody, but Sal Grasso was one of the few people that changed my life, because he sent me to the Massachusetts development program where, like you, Josh, I was surrounded with tremendous players. I'm dating myself now, but that was the group that I was exposed to. That was Ryan Whitney, who played for the Penguins.
Oh, yeah.
Ryan and I played on that development team together, and I got so much better by playing those. So I can't agree with you enough on that so much. Thank you for sharing that. So what's next for you? What's the next big goal?
I want to get back to playing in the U.S. I've enjoyed my time in Asia, and the experiences have been, I wouldn't trade them for anything. But yeah, it's time to make the next step and get back to playing in the U.S. Unfortunately, right now there's so much uncertainty of what's going to happen. It's a bit of a waiting game, and certainly the patience level is, I'm gonna have to be patient with it all. But we'll see what happens and try and be optimistic about it. And there's going to be an opportunity that presents itself, hopefully in the near future, and got to capitalize on that for sure.
Now, when this is over, will you be heading back to Asia to pick up play?
Well, yeah, like I said, it's very uncertain of what in Asia. I think it's hit a little harder in terms of the economy and the sponsors for the events. There's still a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen in terms of whether they're going to have, a bunch of events have obviously already got canceled. I know all of May and June are canceled. We'll see if they start up again in July. So I'm still, I don't know, to be completely honest.
Yeah. So you'll just continue to, work on your game.
Yeah.
In the interim then.
Yeah. So I'm hoping to do a few Monday qualifiers for PGA Tour events and Corn Ferry events. The beauty with golf is 1 week can change your life really. If you Monday qualify and do an event and have a good week, that can spiral into status on one of those tours. So that's ultimately what I'm hoping for.
Now, the development tour here in the U.S. is the web.com, is it?
It was a web.com. It, last year it changed its name to the Corn Ferry Tour.
The Corn Ferry, okay. I did not know
that. Yeah. It's been less than a year, I think, since they've changed it.
One of the things I think to credit you and your success and where you are is that Keegan Bradley grew up in Vermont, although his aunt was a professional, a little different circumstance, Josh, but for the most part, someone like yourself who living up here in the Northeast, you miss 6 months out of the year. It's an incredible amount of time where someone who's playing year round, they have such an advantage. So I give you so much credit to be able to compete at that level, man. I realize it's impressive.
Thank you.
And like I said, I'm an amateur golf. I love golf for the mental side of it. It's so, and you've hit on so much of those points. It's just you and the course sometimes, and but with that said, if you could, where would these events be? Are they local? Would you have to travel? What does that look like?
So in Asia, you're talking
Or
about?
even here, what's the new name of the web.com tour? I forget.
Or the Corn Ferry Tour?
Corn Ferry. Like, would you have to travel far for that? I mean, we're
Yeah, it's really all throughout
all over the place.
throughout the country. Yeah.
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 Man, that's a lot of travel and dedication. So.
Yeah, those travel those flights are a lot easier than the flights from the different locations in Asia that we go. So that would be easy. It'd be much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just for curiosity, culture, what's it like living in Asia? What's it like living in Thailand?
It's certainly got easier as the years gone on. My Thai has gotten pretty good.
Oh,
So I, I'm not going to say I'm fluent by any means, but I've gotten a lot better. So that just makes the day-to-day life that much easier. Well, at the start, I flew to Thailand by myself. I didn't know the language. So dealing with that at the first probably 3 or 4 months was extremely difficult. Just trying to figure out your day-to-day lifestyle and how you would go about doing it stuff, and taking taxis and getting to the golf course and where to eat, how to order, just communicating in general. Was where I lived, there wasn't much English spoke. So it was very, it was extremely difficult.
That's incredible, man. That is definitely living outside your comfort zone for sure. Wow. um, yeah, I mean, we went my senior year of high school. We went over to Russia to play in a hockey tournament over there over the Thanksgiving break, because in prep school you had a whole week off during Thanksgiving, and they flew us out to Moscow, and I can't imagine what you do on a daily basis, because I was only there for a week, and we had 2 female translators that went everywhere with us. They ordered our food, everything. Like, there was no, we were taken care of. But man, what an experience that is. So I've taken up a lot of your time. I appreciate it. I always like to ask, during times of uncertainty where we're battling this pandemic, any last sort of words of advice for all of us?
Whew. Just stay positive and try and find a different, like a different skill that you can improve on, a new hobby. Just get outside, get some fresh air, go for walks. There's nothing worse than sitting on the couch watching Netflix for, a significant period of time. So I'm just trying to stay busy, working out. I've done a lot of reading the last 2 months. I like to stay busy, just doing different things, and you know, not sitting there binge watching a show on Netflix.
Yeah, really. What do you like to read?
Um, Lately, I've been on a business. I just finished Rich Dad Poor Dad. Probably one of the best books I've ever read. I highly recommend that book. I like really a wide range of stuff. Anything to keep the mind going. It was something that I got into in Asia. I never liked to read at all. I used to hate reading. But as a professional golfer, you have a lot of free time in terms of the traveling from, airplanes and, hotel rooms at night, where you don't even have TV or you don't have that option. So yeah, I think, learning something new is never going to hurt, right?
Absolutely. That's great to hear. I mean, the more you talk, the more I see how you live outside of comfort zone, man. That's awesome. I admire that.
Thank you.
Is there a way for people to get in touch with you if they had questions about, the tour or the way your lifestyle is? Is there a way to reach you?
Yeah, I mean, you could email me or even Instagram is the easiest way, or Facebook even. I would say probably Facebook's probably the easiest way. Just when I go over to Asia, unfortunately, my phone number doesn't work. Um, but I would say, yeah, Facebook. Just add me on Facebook, Josh Salah. That's probably the easiest way. Um, yeah,
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for the time today. I really appreciate it. Really.
yeah. Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Yeah. I'm glad it was fun. I'm sorry if you guys heard a little vacuuming going on.
Anytime.
Typical,
No.
typical Ellis household. For everybody that's watching this podcast, I do want to reiterate some of the points that Josh has talked about today. And here's a person who, really found that golf could lead him somewhere in his life, sort of even later in life, when people consider that either you've mastered a craft or you haven't. And he's developed himself into playing professionally. But what's really interesting is being able to leave your family, leave your home, travel the world, play a sport that you love. The amount of time that he puts in, almost 8-12 hour days on the course, the time traveling to events, it can't be taken for granted how much he puts into his craft to be at the level he is. And for all the youth athletes that are out there that are watching this, and you see someone like Josh, anything is possible if you're willing to sacrifice, overcome adversity, and put yourself in situations where you're going to grow. And the only way to grow, as Josh has mentioned, is when you're uncomfortable. So I thank Josh. Thank you so much. Everybody stay safe, and I will see you guys next week. But if you have questions, reach out to Josh because he's a great influence. Take care, everybody.